Welcome, everybody, to the SAG-AFTRA podcast. I'm Gabrielle Carteris, president of SAG-AFTRA.
And I'm David White, National Executive Director of SAG-AFTRA.
Today, we're going to take an inside look at the dynamic, precise, and often dangerous, and I mean dangerous, work of stunt performers and coordinators, how stunts work, how they evolve, and what SAG-AFTRA is doing to protect our members' safety. And we have in the room with us
two very special guests.
That's right.
Jane Austen, and then on the phone, Cort Hessler. Both are very highly accomplished in the stunt world, and both are very active in the union.
Yes, we're very grateful for that. Jane is actually the L.A. local president and secretary-treasurer of SAG-AFTRA. She's also a stunt performer who has appeared in over 60 productions, including Justified, True Blood, Bosch, Avatar, and she is here with us in our L.A. studio.
Good morning, you guys.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Cort is an Emmy Award-winning stunt coordinator and stunt performer. Last year, he earned his 10th Emmy nomination, which is phenomenal, setting a record in the field. His work has appeared in Spider-Man 2, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Men in Black, and television series like Blacklist. He is SAG-AFTRA's National Stunt Committee Chair, and he joins us from his home in New Jersey.
Hi,
Well,
Cort.
hello.
So I actually wanted to really start off with people have no idea what stunt coordinators are or stunt performers are. And I think that when I look back on your beginnings, I'd love to start with Jane, because you used to fly helicopters, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I got my SAG card working on a show called Tour of Duty, flying a Huey 205 helicopter in Hawaii, and then just moved on to driving cars in commercials for the first 4 years of my career. There weren't a lot of 5'10" stunt women at that time. I was one of the first.
When you became a helicopter pilot, though, was that because you wanted to be a stunt person, or did you want to fly helicopters and then you became a stunt person?
I actually, it's funny because my husband at the time was an aerial coordinator, and we did a show called Airwolf. So we would fly the Airwolf helicopter on the weekends to all of the air shows to promote the show and whatnot. So I learned how to fly from him just because that's what we did. And then it was kind of a fluke that I got my SAG card because the co-pilot that morning got sick at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was the only person that was available that could fly.
Jane, how old were you?
I was in my late 20s.
And
when
how
you
many
started?
women were doing that?
There was, I think, 1 or 2 other stunt women that were 5'10" at that time. And they were kind of older, and I was younger. So they took me under their wing, and I mean, I was trained by some of the great older established stunt women, took me under their wing to train me. So that was really exciting.
And Cort, I didn't know you worked for Disney. It was Disney. You weren't a stunt person then, right?
Well, no, but kind of. I started when I was in high school. Disney came to our high school and came to our band room and needed people to fit certain outfits for a live show with Carol Lawrence. So I happened to fit one of the outfits, and they hired me as a German boy for Epcot.
Wow.
But that turned into a full-time job at Disney right after I graduated, and I started water skiing for them. And that's what really kind of set my career path the way it has been. From there, I went to Universal Studios and opened up a Miami Vice type boat show. It was all stunt boat driving, and they brought in coordinators from Los Angeles to train us. And from there, the studio was a working studio. It was a first one really in Orlando. Actually, MGM was the first one, but Universal Studios wanted it to be a working studio. So the stunt guys and myself on the live shows there, we went and kind of walked around the back lot and met this guy, Artie Maleshi, who was doing the TV shows there, Superboy, Super4, Swamp Thing, those things. And he gave us a shot. So my specialty was water work. And my first full-time job as a stunt performer was Sequest.
Wow. Oh, my
It's
God.
amazing.
We're not going to date you there.
Well, but we are talking about, for both of you, we're talking about the mid to late 80s and early 90s, right? That's right around.
And starting young.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
right?
really, I look at the stunt work that goes on, and I know I don't have the courage. It takes a certain energy,
Yeah.
right? Certain kind of energy to do what you do.
And then it takes training. So at some point, both of you called yourselves and were considered by the industry stunt performers. Walk us through what it takes to actually reach that threshold. What is your training?
Well, being a stunt performer has evolved so much since the beginning of my career, where, for example, I would get hired to double an actress, and I would be her only double. So you kind of learned how to drive a car. You learned how to take a car hit, do stair falls, do fighting, all of that. Where today, because the action is so much larger, there'll be 4 girls
to cover one performer.
That'll cover one performer because it has become so specialized. So, but back to you, it's like after I learned how to do a high fall, I learned how to do a burn. I got my black belt in Taekwondo, I can do a ratchet, air ram descender, all of the things.
We don't know what those are.
No.
Right. Well, okay, let's say a descender is a high fall on a wire and there's nothing below you.
Oh, my.
A ratchet is like, for example, if you see somebody getting shot and they get pulled back violently,
right,
and you're on a wire. An air ram is like a catapult where you'll step on it and it launches you.
So, Cort, I know that, you talk about starting as a stunt performer, but you are now a stunt coordinator. Tell people what a difference between a stunt performer and a stunt coordinator is.
Well, a stunt coordinator, they design the action, they hire the stunt people, they explain to the stunt people how to do the action they need. When I say design the stunt, it's just not talking about it and say, oh, do this, do that. It's actually physically going in and looking at locations, making sure that the action can fit in that location, see what the hazards are. It's working with all the department heads from special effects to wardrobe, makeup, hair, everybody. So it's more of a manager position with the creativity side of a director. You also go through casting. You interact with the actors, trying to figure out their abilities and their comfort level with doing things. You work directly with the director in creating their vision, and the writers, when they'll say, and the car chase goes through here, see Cort, and it says that in the script. So they really rely on you to come up with the creation of the action.
When you're saying you work with actors,
we work with the actors. We have to form a relationship with them. We have to know what they're able to do, what their ailments are. Some people have a bad knee or a bad back, and they can't do a certain thing. Mm-hmm. So you become friends with the actors on these shows. And it's for the safety of them.
And seeing the latest Mission Impossible and having all the hoopla about Tom Cruise not only doing his own stunts, but at one point stopping production because he broke his leg when he... Right. Have you run across actors who want to do that, who like to do that, and is it ever a problem in your judgment?
This is what my saying is. I'm replaceable. And so production realizes that. So if something happens on the set, the production's not going to stop like it did what happened on Mission Impossible. So a lot of times the insurance companies don't want the actors to do things. And if they want to go ahead and do it, then production, like the line producer, will come in and just say, you know what, we really can't have you do that.
But we're seeing also that there are actors who are doing their stunts, just like you're talking about Tom Cruise. So what becomes that judgment? As David was asking, have you done it? How do you make the determination? And then...
So it changes every day. That's the hard part. So you have to do a risk assessment on the stunt itself and think about the worst possible outcome. The jump that Tom Cruise did, the risk outweighing the reward was overwhelming. So a lot of it, you just have to look at that. You let them know, hey, listen, if you do this wrong, you could smash your hand, whatever. You got to explain to them what the outcome could be. And I can tell you, it's happened to me once where I didn't feel comfortable with the actor doing a stunt. I said no. They said yes. I said no. They said yes. I went back and forth a couple times. Brought the producer in. The producer said, hey, if he wants to do it, let him do it. I'm like, I can't be on the set. I'm going to tell you no. And it was just simply going through a tempered piece of glass. When they all cut, next thing I heard was medic, and they took the actor to the hospital and got stitches across the top of his eye.
Wow.
Wow.
That's how it goes being a stunt coordinator. You got to stand up and just say no sometimes.
So as the only non-performer at the table, what actor wants to run through glass that can actually cut you?
So that goes to the question I actually asked a little bit earlier, right? What drives you as a stunt performer? Yeah. So you're not just being an actor, right? You are literally making a decision. What is that thrill? Cort, you're actually working right now on Blacklist, and you are having stunts done every single day. That's high tension and energy. And what drives you to even have an interest to be in that kind of high
Put
stress?
yourself in that danger.
Every day.
Every day, right.
I guess it's a natural gene that you have. I've always had that adrenaline rush, and it's a natural high. I've done some really difficult stunts in my career where I jumped a car 140 feet into a cement wall. The moment I became a stunt coordinator, the adrenaline rush that I have daily is mind-boggling. And I think it's because I design an action sequence and I'm putting other people's lives at danger that I have to be responsible for. If you like being a stunt person, or you just barely like being a stunt person, you don't really like the adrenaline, don't be a stunt coordinator. I have no hair left for a reason. I'm constantly going over everything 100 times, and I always work the stunts backwards. I start with the worst possible outcome and tone it back until I make it an accomplishable sequence. So I don't know how to tell you why we do that, other than it is in me. It's something within that I was born with.
Jane, I think some of the work that you do, I know that you've done different stunts, but one of the focuses or the main things that you're known for is fire.
There's nothing like being lit on fire. I'll never forget my first really big full burn. It was for Law and Order. It was in New York. It was in an alley. I had air in my suit because this thing was so big. So when you prep for this, you have your fire gel with your Nomex underwear that you put in the ice overnight so that it's cold, because you get warm when you're on fire. And then you have your fire suit, then you put your wardrobe on, you have a mask, you have the wig, you have like a hood that has Pyrex lenses on it, and then you put the mask on and the wig and everything. And then you put the fuel on your wardrobe. And then they say action and you do your action. And I gotta tell you, this burn was so awesome because it was 9 degrees outside. So I didn't get hot at all on it. But plus your underwear's freezing anyways. And I had to do all this action, and it was great because Cort was the one that lit me.
Kurt's her husband, let's just remind
Kurt's
you.
my husband.
Kurt lit you on fire.
Yeah, Cort lights me on fire. He throws me off of buildings. I hit him with Winnebagos, and we're happily married. What can I say? So all you see is orange, and you hear it. But I actually had a tank because I was on fire for so long, and I had to do so much action that I had to breathe. Because sometimes, depending on what the burn is, you'll hold your breath. Another burn that I did for True Blood, I didn't. I had to hold my breath on that one.
And so they put you out.
Yeah.
Somebody comes to...
I was a vampire that went out in the sun, and I melted.
Wow, okay. The sun melted you, not the flames.
Yeah, that's right. The sun, I burst into flame.
So this is like a specialty that you do. Cort, I'd love to know if you have a specialty, but also if you wanted to talk about what's your most favorite stunt to coordinate and your most favorite stunt to execute, and are they the same?
They're not the same. They're cars and boats. I hold a world record for longest boat jump, so boats are my specialty. But that also translates into designing car chases, and those are my definitely two favorite things to do.
How long is the jump?
Yeah.
That you have a record?
139 feet.
139 feet. It's an art. I mean, it's a practice that you study. Is there school? Is there a training facility for stunts? And, I mean, how do you...
There are. When you talk to stunt people, you're going to find majority of them have a specialty. That specialty usually got them their start, whether it be martial arts, gymnasts, motorcycle people, bicycle people, parkour. They all have some kind of certainty that got them into the business and got that adrenaline going. So from there, you're constantly learning on the set. You're watching this other professional or the other specialty people do their special thing, and you kind of learn as you go. There are plenty of stunt schools out there. I take them as a stepping stone, but not as an actual training center, meaning any education is good education when it comes to stunts, learning air awareness and how to use the different types of gear and how to pad up and how to drive cars and motorcycles. There's all kinds of specialty schools. You can go somewhere just to drive cars. You can go somewhere just to do high falls. You can go to a school of just about fire burns. To be a really good stunt performer, you need to be a well-rounded stunt performer and have all this kind of knowledge. And not necessarily schools. Stunt people get together with other stunt people and teach each other their trade. That's the biggest learning part of it. starting out in live shows is a great stepping stone. You learn the basics there.
Like at Universal or Disney.
It's not necessarily the same kind of action that we do in television and features, because you're doing something that you can do over and over and over again in front of a live audience, where a lot of our stunts are one-off. Mm-hmm. We'll crash a car and that car will never run again. But we'll do a major burn, and it costs so much money for all the gels, the wardrobe, the fuels, and all the stunt people and safety people that you don't usually do it more than once or twice.
Yeah, and there's like in Los Angeles here, there's 3 different places. One's a parkour place, there's an XMA place, and then Valley College. They have
College?
Yeah, they have gymnastic workouts, and a lot of people that want to become stunt performers will go to one of those places, and it serves the purpose for them to show what they've got and to meet coordinators or meet performers and show your work ethic. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I met this amazing young gal at a panel. She's one of our members, and she was a gymnast. So I told her to go, to one of these gyms. She ended up going and has become one of the top stunt women.
How fabulous
and
is that?
She worked on Black Panther.
When you talk about your experience when you first started, and Jane, you mentioned yourself and 2 other women who were known, like the exponential growth of this work, are you seeing a major shift of inclusion with more women involved?
Also, people of color.
Yes. Well, this gal, she's African-American, and she's amazing. And she got one of the top spots in Black Panther.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Which was I was so excited for her. But women are working more now just because there's more opportunities for us. They're writing more stunts for women. For example, in Kill Bill, when Uma and Daryl Hannah got into that fight in the trailer, that was really the first fight that 2 women really went at it. And then Mr. and Mrs. Smith,
right?
And then, there's been an evolution that more and more parts are being written where women are these strong, action, tough, which is
reflective
fantastic.
Of real life,
of course, of course, which is exciting. I mean, because it's an opportunity for us that we didn't have before. Think about it in the early days. It was all guys.
I moved to New York in 1999. When I got here, there were 10 stunt women, and now there's probably 150, closer to 200 stunt women. And that's real gain. I have no problem picking up the phone, and there's a turnover on my show, and calling like a Jody Pinn or Natasha and saying, hey, I need you guys to flip the car over here. And they've done it for me. So to me, it's always portraying the actor. So it's not a guy doing a stunt for a female actress in my mind. It's a woman doing that stunt.
So some of the things that concerns or things that have come up in the past is, and David, you talked about people of color, right? We know that there's been people putting on blackface or men dressing as women. There seems to be more opportunity for work out there. Are we being more inclusive? We're still seeing some of that. How do you counter that?
Yeah, there's a reputation within the stunt community that it is a closed ecosystem, that is very hard for people to break in if they don't have a family member or if they're not a part of the social circle of the folks who receive some of the attention that both of you have talked about, where you've had some relationship with someone or encouraged someone to break into the profession or to at least consider it. So is that, with the explosion of different narratives and different stories now with all the platforms that we have, is that changing, or is that something that still a struggle within the community?
No, I can tell you my own experience. My dad worked for Lockheed Martin. I knew nobody in this business. And it was about putting myself in the right situations, starting out at the live shows. Even at Universal, at the live show, we had a couple female boat drivers there that went on with us. They didn't pursue the stunt end of it after it, but they were there. The explosion of work has definitely helped people get involved. The evolution of kids in general. Just look at motorcycles, because that's really easy to look at. 10 years ago, they were doing, jumping a triple jump. Today, they're doing a double backflip over that same triple jump, and it's the evolution of the people themselves. Mm-hmm. So, and that's translated from male to female, Caucasian to African American, Hispanic. It's everybody is getting more involved, and I think it helps that we have so much more work here now, and it's not farmed out overseas. Georgia's a perfect example. There's so many new people there now, and all the people who are in Florida moved there because there's so much work there. And Florida is a great place to discuss it because there's so many live shows there. It's a stepping stone. And then right next door was Georgia. It was a simple move for them. I do feel like it's getting way better, and that mentality is an old way of thinking. I saw a little bit of it at the beginning of my career, at the end of the 80s when I started in New York. When you say
it, what do you...
Men doing women's stunts or paint downs. Or, you hear about it, sure. I haven't seen it. It's very rare, and, there should be a 100% explanation if you have to do that.
Right. And Jane, why?
Yeah, it's more of an old school. The older guys are the ones that will hire their buddies and have them, put a wig on and stuff. It's actually the younger coordinators that are coming up that are working on the big shows don't understand that, because what they're doing is that they need to find the best stunt performer to make them look good. And the action has gotten so much bigger than what it used to be. I mean, think about like when I started in the business, there was the Bionic Woman. And remember how she used to slow-mo jump off of the building? And that was like, whoa, she just jumped. Now it's like, you look at what Cort's doing on Blacklist, and it's just like, it's feature quality stunts on television. The way we get our work is we have to hustle. So if you know that a coordinator is working, then you'll show up on the set and you'll show them what, a headshot resume and introduce yourself and like kind of let them know what you can do. But I see these kids that come to Avatar that, they're talented and they're hardworking and they've got this work ethic, and these coordinators want to hire them because they're going to make them look really good.
One thing I really love that both Cort and you and other members actually in the union worked on something with doing the shadowing. Talk about shadowing, because I think there are people who really would aspire to do this, and like great suggestions, do the live shows. That's really great to be able to go and hopefully meet somebody who does the work and ask the question. But the shadowing seems to be a really important aspect of the training. So, Cort, I know on your show that you talk about having people to come in and shadow. What does that mean?
First of all, shadowing is priceless. It's so good. Even if you just want to be a stunt person, you figure so much out. I had the opportunity when I started in Florida that Artie Maleshi took me under his wing, and I was his assistant. I learned so much just by watching, and he would show me so much that he made me the coordinator I am today. So what shadowing is, it's everything about the business of being a stunt coordinator. You see how to break a script down. Sounds easy, but you know what? There's little tricks to it. There's budgeting. There's how do you cast people? You got to look at their hair, you got to look at their body type, you got to look at their ability, and you got to try to make all these things come together to be the perfect person. So you get to watch how somebody thinks this through. You get to see how the conversations go with the directors and the writers and the producers to figure out, okay, how are we going to pull this off? What are you going to do? And you show them how you create options of the action. It's also, you learn how to stand up for the members. You learn how to stand up for your stunt people, the stunt performers, and the actors, because you can see a stunt coordinator tell a producer or a director, no, we can't do it that way. One key thing that I always tell stunt coordinators that come work for me, it's fine to say no. There's no issue to say no. If they get mad, they get mad. But your best option when you say no is to give them an option. We can't do it like that, so let's do it like this. Here's an idea. And you give them options, and 9 times out of 10, it makes saying no easy. People are afraid of losing their jobs more than saying no. And that's something we got to get out of everybody's thought process. And I think when you shadow somebody and you can actually see how they can stand up to a situation without being mean or upset or anything, just have a real conversation about it.
So I was going to place this within the context of something that both of you have referred to, but should be teased out a little bit, which is that stunts in 2018 are in fact different than stunts in 1988. And the larger, more extravagant stunts that happen on 2-hour-long movies where you had 3-4 months of production, and therefore there was a lot of planning time and there was a lot of time for execution. You might be able to do it multiple times. And now in today's production environment, those stunts and even more extreme stunts are happening on television shows where you have a very short period of time to prepare and to execute the stunt. And as a result, the union has put together a couple of different rules and are taking a different position than we have in the past in order to enhance our ability to protect our members who are engaged in stunt performing work. One of those rules that we have just passed is shadowing. And so right now we're talking about expanding the opportunity for people to actually come in and learn and to shadow an experienced person. And so that's the context for this. I think there are some other things that we can refer to as well, but shadowing right now is something that we talked about.
Right.
That's right, in the boardroom. It's mentoring, and it's mentoring not cost-free, but in the sense of someone being able to come on set. They're not necessarily going to be paid, but they are going to be able to sit and watch and learn and have conversations with the folks who are doing the work. And then hopefully that leads to the real kind of mentoring where you can share the work and they are participating at a subordinate level, and then they are on their own. And so it's an attempt on our part to create a better stepping stone for people to get into the career in a way that's not only safe, but as Cort, you were just mentioning, gives
Safer.
people the confidence to say no and to have judgment calls even when you're debating or arguing with a producer or a director or some other decision maker. So, and I have a question about the increased complexity of stunts and helping the audience understand. What do we mean when we say that, and why is that important?
You know, when I started, I worked on a lot of features. And we would go in, and that day we would rehearse it, and we would shoot it, and, you know, we'd do however many takes or whatnot. Now, when we work on the big features that we work on, we'll go in months before on a soundstage and figure it all out. Shoot rehearsals, do previs is what they're called. And they'll shoot it, they'll edit it, they'll show it to the director, the producer, they'll do any changes so that on the actual day that we're going to film it now, we just go in, we know exactly what we're doing, and we shoot it.
So there's more of an ability to prep and to...
Now
for film.
That's on features.
That's for feature-length
television.
movies. That's what you see on the big screen when you go to the theater with popcorn, et cetera.
Exactly. But with Cort, what they used to shoot in 12 days for one episode of television, they're shooting in 9, and the action is that much bigger. So Cort's job in actuality is a lot more difficult, where it's gotten a lot, more planned out because they want to save the money on the big features by not having to figure it out on the day like they used to.
Well, there's a big concern, and that's so helpful, a difference between film and TV. And I think, maybe, Cort, you can even talk to this a little bit. It's not only that it's become more difficult, the actions they're asking for on television, because television did have a different quality, and now you're seeing a similar quality to film, but there's less time to do it. But also, with the exponential growth of our industry and all the different platforms, there's more shows out there now than ever before. And so people are stepping up saying, well, I'm a stunt coordinator when maybe they don't have the experience, or I'm a stunt performer and maybe they've only done one stunt. So there is a lack of measurement to be able to make the determination if somebody has enough experience. That's why I like that mentoring or shadowing program, because that's one step towards education. But I'd love you to be able to talk a little bit about what that's like. Cort, you're seeing it across and Jane too, both of you talk about it, the work it's just, there's so much work out there and there's just not enough of those coordinators or stunt people out there. How do we deal with that?
Let me just go back just a little bit. I think one of the main things that a stunt coordinator should have is to be able to have a conversation with their stunt people and the actors. And when I say conversation, like if a stunt person is getting hit by a car, I actually show them, even though they know how to do it, I'll say, listen, you got to do this. You put the shoulder here. I want your back to hit here. And I actually physically show them how to do it. I'm not able to have that conversation if I didn't do stunts first and have that experience of doing these different type of stunts. One thing I will say going into this conversation is back in the day, TV was, a starting place for stunt coordinators. People would do TV, they do daytime soap operas, then they get maybe a primetime network show, and then they go off and do features, and then they would never look back. They just do features. Today, it's different. You can take a good TV stunt coordinator and do any feature there is, but you can't take any feature stunt coordinator and do any TV anymore.
That's interesting.
It's a different game. The shows shoot 9 days, but we only get our script 7 days before we start shooting each episode. And while we're shooting, we're prepping for the next episode. So you have always 2 things going on at once. 2 different episodes, if not more sometimes. Now, moving forward into the creation of all these jobs here and people taking these jobs, it's always been that way as far as maybe somebody doesn't have that much experience but decides that he or she is ready to coordinate and they go out and do it. It's just a recipe for disaster. I learned that very early in my career. I didn't coordinate for the first 8 or 9 years of performing. And it was because I was lucky enough to be mentoring under Artie and seeing all the potential problems that would happen and how things wouldn't go exactly right with this person who was in charge that knew how to do it and things still go wrong. So I really feel that this program that David White was just talking about is essential to the future of this growing into a more safe occupation.
Sure. I mean, it speaks to the very topic, Cort, you were just talking about, which very easily turns into an unsafe work environment because so many of the things that our stunt performers are called upon to do and our coordinators is happening in a compressed time schedule. And with the explosion of work, more and more people are called upon to do it, and they may have less experience than the 8-9 years of stunt performer shadowing experience you just described, Cort, and all the great experience that you had, Jane. So in reaction to that, our stunt community brought forth something to our national board that turned into an informal eligibility system or an informal system to help people understand the level of experience that people were bringing to the table. Can we talk a little bit about that?
So looking around the country and talking to stunt people from all over the country, SAG-AFTRA members, we saw a pattern about the timing that it was taking for people who were good coordinators before they became coordinators. And it was anywhere from the earliest was 5 years and the average was about 7-8 years. And just looking at how many days they worked, and we came up with this formula that 500 days of working as a stunt performer would help you have a better understanding of being a stunt performer to move into that stunt coordinating aspect of this business. But we didn't want to stop there. We wanted to make sure there was education built into this program to really make sure people have the experience. So the first level of our program is that when a stunt performer reaches 250 days, they can enter the mentor program, which we were just talking about earlier. And that's simply shadowing a stunt coordinator. They can be part of any process they want, whether it's going to a concept meeting, which is the very first meeting that you have when you get a script, to a director scout, which means that you and the director, it's the very first time anybody's seeing the location, to the execution of the stunt on the day. And I think that's very important to make visible, because in the past, it's only been a very small few people who've gotten that opportunity. I was fortunate enough to have that opportunity, and that's why I wanted to make sure it gets preserved and opened up to a larger group of people.
You know what I love that you put into place on this was the fact that at 250 days, if you're going to be menteed, that you're going to make sure it's a blind choice. So that means that somebody who's a coordinator can sign up to be somebody who mentors, but you're not going to know who you're mentoring. So that allows for the inclusion that we're trying to do more of. Even throughout the union, we're always trying to set better practice through the industry. And I think that was just brilliant to be able to make it like a blind mentorship. I think it's wonderful. I'm hoping that, there was such good feelings from the community on this and creating this. I know it's been a long time coming. There were a lot of different iterations that you looked at. I know everybody's really hoping that this is a great next step. I want to ask on the final thing before we go on, you don't have agents. You don't have people who represent you. So that person who's listening right now saying, that just sounds so exciting when you're talking about, Jane's talking about Avatar and you're talking about Blind Spot and the movies that you've worked on and all these shows, and there's so much more of it. How does one just initially get introduced? You talked about doing live shows or whatever, but somebody wants to really pursue stunt work. For both of you, if you could quickly give just 2 points that you would say, this is a good way to do that.
First thing you should do is find out where a set is and go watch, because it may not be something you want to do. And then you might watch it and go, I'm absolutely going to do this. Mm-hmm. So that's the first step. The second step is then you need to meet the stunt coordinators on these shows and the stunt people even. And you'll find that once you find these people, and there's call sheets and lists through the union that people can find out where the shows are shooting. And
you just hang outside the show and say, "Hey, are you the stunt coordinator? Can you talk to me?"
I get, on an average day, I'll have 25 people show up on my set just to introduce themselves. They'll hand me a headshot and resume if they have it, or they're just there to ask me a question like, "Hey, how do I get started?" And I always start out by saying, "You just did the first step. You came out here and met me."
That's awesome.
You got to meet the people, because the reality is we have to trust everybody that we hire.
Mm-hmm.
So that's huge. You can't trust somebody if you don't know them at all. So you got to build a relationship. And it's just going out, introducing yourself, mingling with the stunt performers. The stunt performers themselves have groups where they go out and they start practicing. Mm-hmm. So it's just infiltrating the stunt community just by being there, just by saying hi, and be very honest. That's the other thing. You have to be honest about your skills. You say, "Hi, my name is Cort. I'm really interested in being a stunt person. I'd love to watch for the day if I could. I'll stand back here. I'm not going to say a word." And 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, "Yeah, no problem." I mean, again, that's how I started. I introduced myself to Artie. I said, "Do you mind if I watch?" He goes, "Watch all you want." And then about 10 minutes later, he goes, "Hey, could you help me move this pad over here?" I'm like, "Sure." I was so happy.
And what it is that I agree with everything that Cort said. It's being honest with your abilities, because there's nothing worse than when you hire somebody that says that they can do something and they can't do it, because then that makes the coordinator look bad. But it's building relationships. It's showing your work ethic. It's showing that you're a team player. That's why I encourage a lot of people to go to the parkour gym or go to XMA. And then it also builds those relationships with the stunt performers. You find out where they work out.
Right. So Jane was just talking about, for those in L.A. who are listening, these are places, but Cort, has places in New York.
Sure, there's gyms in New York. Find out where they work out. They see your talent, they see your skills, they see your work ethic, they see that you're a nice person.
Mm-hmm.
We skipped over one thing, and I'll do it really quick. It's the next level of the program, which is 350 days. So we have the mentorship at 250 days. The next level is 350 days, which is actually the apprentice program. Now, actually already do this now on shows. There's multiple stunt coordinators on any given show, and you always have one department head who's the stunt coordinator, and that would be somebody with the appropriate 500 days. But this lower level at 350 days, you're not quite that stunt coordinator yet, but you can be hired as a stunt coordinator working on these shows under a stunt coordinator.
It's great.
Good. It's so good. The path. I think the path to the work you do, because there is a path, and it's not something you just jump into.
Right.
And I think the rules around this will evolve. I think it's so fantastic that we have implemented this and have set the course, and we'll just keep getting better and better, and it will allow us to help make sure that the community is in a safer and safer work environment. So it's really great.
Really proud of the work you guys have done, I have to say. It's really, the stunt community is strong and vibrant, and you're the ones who keep us safe. So I want to say thank you as a member who appreciates all the work you do.
Yeah, and as a staff member, and also these stories today just help me fall in love again with the very idea of stunt performance. So it's really interesting.
I'm in love with the idea that I don't do it and you do. So
best job in the world.
Exactly. Jane Austen and Cort Hessler.
That's right.
Yes.
Excellent.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.